Well, welcome, my friends. Welcome to 2018. We're into the new year. And for a resolution, I think I'll just continue on teaching you how to be the best archers that you can be, giving you little tips and hints. I've sometimes talked about having a journal. Well, I'll show you my journal. These started in 2011. These are all every night going home, writing down notes for years, up until now. And these days I'm writing things like real close. Well, what do I mean by that? Let's just go over the things that we've been doing, and I've shown you some of this stuff before, but I'm going to show you again, reiterate, and get it into your heads, some of the more important things, because I've shown you things that aren't necessarily as important, or alternatives. But something that I think is extremely important is pushing from close. I've talked about that before. The way I look at it, it's more or less like a boxer. Put up your dukes. Now this right hand is in here, close to the face, protecting the face. But what it really is for an archer, and remember, close, okay? For an archer, what this means is pushing from close. If I keep my hand back here, and my hand is back here, you see how I can simply look along the arrow? If it's close, if it's out here, it's much harder. But if you've got your hand in fairly close, you can push it right on straight. Okay? So the hand, the right hand, is in close. When it's in close and that arrow is over on the side, it's very easy to go because your hand's already there. So you're lining up your anchor, your face, your eye, the back of the arrow, and then you just push the front on. So that's a very good way of doing it. Now listen, if you've got a light bow, this is only a 30-pound bow, okay, 32 pounds, light. It's quite easy to push on from close. Okay, quite easy. But if the bow is heavy, it's not as easy. So if the bow is heavy, you may have your hand a little farther away, but you keep it as close as you can. See, if it's a little farther away, you don't hurt your shoulder when you push it out. But as close as you can is where you get it, okay? So I think that that's a big deal, very big deal. Aiming from close, pushing from close, keeping that right hand back there. Now I've said it enough, but listen to what I'm saying. Another thing is when you're relaxing into place, you get the bow back here. If you can relax out about here, Horace Ford used to take his aim from about 4 inches in front of his face. I don't know if this is exactly what he was doing, it's what I'm doing, okay, like this. And when I relax, everything falls into place. So it's out here, there's lots of tension in the arms, and I let it relax, it falls into place. Now I continue my draw. So I do a thing where, right, in close, push it on. Now when I get tension on there, I just relax. And see how it went off? Well, now I know I put it back on. So if you relax, everything will wiggle and you can keep it on. I call it the wiggle, and sometimes I call it the relax in. But it's an important thing to get everything lined up out here and now come back that little bit. It's a good spot to do it. listen, there's several ways to aim. There's point of aim, and there's gap. And then there's what I call shooting the angle. It could be called instinctive, perhaps. I would say Byron Ferguson may be talking about become the arrow. I call it shooting the angle, you know. So when I'm looking at the target, I'm just basically doing something that's impossible to describe to you. I'm just lining it up. I mean, what the hell does that mean, right? You know. Anyhow, I'm not looking at the target and judging where the tip is down here in my peripheral vision, and I'm not looking at the gap and putting the tip on there and looking at it and waiting for it to go in. I'm looking and just feeling the pressure in my arms. And when I can feel the pressure in my arms, the pressure's hanging from my elbow, I've controlled it with my fingers of my right hand, and when I can feel that pressure and it just seems like it's going to lob it in, that's when I let go. I call that shooting the angle. And I'm looking at the center. You see, if you're not looking at the center, how can you line up to it? It's got to be right on that center. You know, if you're looking at the tip or you're looking over this way or that way, it's got to be a real concentrated kind of a look. Again, it's something I can only tell you about. I can't show you. You have to experience it. But it's a big deal. Look at the center if you're going to shoot the angle. If you're using gap, and gap and point of aim are fairly good if you're at a known distance. At a known distance. The gap is always the same, the point of aim is always the same, but when you're at unknown distances, doing that, shooting the angle, throwing the dart, is more beneficial because you're not thinking about distance at all, you see. Now, the fingers are what really do the aiming. My arm has to be all the way back and it's relaxed, okay? And it's relaxed and it does that little wiggle and it all settles in, you know, bone to bone. All the bones are all lined up. It's not the muscles, it's the bones lined up. Pressure's on the bones. Okay? So that's what we want to do. Now when we get that pressure lined up on the bones, that last little while, I can tell where the arrow is. I can feel the pressure through my arms. And I can see that that tip is slightly off. And I can just adjust my fingers the slightest amount. You won't even notice my fingers moving. And that little tip will just go on. So it's really the left hand is holding it solid and still wherever it's supposed to be, right? The tip is on. You've just got to get the ass end on now. It's got to be hanging and relaxed from that arm. But those fingers do that final adjustment on the power line. And when they're lined up and it's all lined up and that pressure's lined up, you're going to hit that target. So that would be the kind of things that I'm going to say to you. Now, that's just going over some of the things that we did last year. I'm going to show you a couple of other little things. This is a Howard Hill bow. It's 45 pounds. It's a Wesley model. It's got 5 layers of bamboo. It's all bamboo. And it's a great bow. Very, very good shooting bow. I don't use it these days. I shoot ebb, I mean, it's hard to choose when you got this great bow and that great bow and this great bow and that great bow. Which great bow should I shoot today? Anyhow, I'm an English longbow shooter, but this is a great bow. It's a Howard Hill. It's straight up and down. It's not a reflex deflex. And it has a fairly small shelf on it. And it's got mastodon horn tips, or mastodon ivory. They dig it up in Siberia, ship it down to the States. But I like that bow. I've enjoyed shooting it. And here's another little bow that I'll show you. Now, this is a Indo-Persian style of bow. Okay, it's inlaid with silver. It's a bow that would come apart. They made them out of Damascus steel, and they're a very short horse bow. I got this off eBay. Unfortunately, it's a knockoff, and it wasn't actually made out of spring steel, so it is a knockoff. But I thought that you might find something like that kind of interesting, the Indo-Persians. And one other last little thing I'll show you is a Cinquenta. Now, a Cinquenta is a short sword or a big dagger. It's an Italian weapon. Lots of big blood grooves in it, I think you can see. Well, you know, when I was about 10 years old, my father and I were walking down Yonge Street, and I saw a dagger, smaller than this, but the same Cinquenta style, in a window, and I wanted it so bad, and I asked my dad for it, and of course my father wasn't a fool. He knew what I was like, so he said no. Anyhow, I cried for 2 days solid. I thought I could break him down, you know. He'll give it to me if I cry long enough. Well, it didn't work. My dad never gave it to me. Anyhow, I found this guy about a year ago. As soon as I saw it, I went, whoa! I always wanted this guy. So, I got it. Hey, Dad. I got it, Dad. Anyhow, I think they're particularly beautiful, though. Don't you think it's a beautiful shape? Okay, so anyhow, that's enough chatting for now, and I'll be talking to you later. So you guys go have some fun, and we're going to have some fun this year. Letting it hang, aiming with our fingers, holding it on, and the phone. Anyhow, bye now. Have fun.